Why is the Russia propagandist important?
Well, if you're a Jew and you're over 16, you have to register your real estate, you have to register for the separatist movement, or else you become deported from Ukraine. Couple that with the propagandist Russian nationalist movement.
Has been passed out in this Ukrainian city that's fluctuating between pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian governments. So the flyer was passed out, but no one has claimed responsibility. No one's saying, yes, we're behind this.
And so it begins.
What if one side is doing this and making it look like the other side is doing this?
I think it doesn't matter, because in the end, the Jews are going to be deported, and
yeah, I mean,
you know,
in the European model, both the communists and the fascists killed them.
It's Sharona's story. I think she would be great if we could get her on from Israel.
Sharona on that.
Yeah,
let's talk to her.
Okay, so tell me about this flyer that has been passed around.
So the Jewish community on the eve of Passover, there were 3 men reported to be handing out outside the synagogue in a place called Donetsk, a flyer that said that all members of the Jewish community, 16 years and older, have to register as Jews. They have to declare their property and cars and pay a $50 fine, or the equivalent of $50. They were being told to register with the separatist government, which was just declared about a week ago. And if they don't do that, they would be stripped of their citizenship, deported, and their property would be confiscated. Needless to say, that put a real chill on the Passover Seders, which the Jews were literally heading towards when the alleged documents or flyers were distributed. Nobody's been able to verify, is this for real? Is this a real program? The head of the pro-Russian separatist government, I should say, in the eastern part of Ukraine, Denis Pushilin is his name, he is denying that his people distributed this and that this is real. His supporters claim it's an effort to blame the separatists. But listen, as far as the Jews are concerned, there aren't really necessarily ever any good guys. Right now we're talking about possibly pro-Russians distributing this very disturbing document. But just last year we put up a story on the Blaze about the Svoboda Party, the Ukrainian Nationalist Party, the other side of the political spectrum, marching with T-shirts that said "Beat the Jews." Ukraine has a really rife and troubled history with anti-Semitism, everything from pogroms 100 years ago and more to active assistance of the Nazis during World War II. Remember, the biggest massacre during World War II was called Babi Yar. That was in Ukraine.
As a Christian, I am, and as a Christian in America, I know I've been over to Israel, and not all of Israel. I mean, I wouldn't be in Tel Aviv, but Jerusalem. I said to my wife, and I meant this sincerely, things get bad enough, I think I'm going to move to Jerusalem, because at least people are awake. Are we looking at a situation with people in the Ukraine who are Jewish, who have seen this movie before several times? Is there any talk or movement at all in that population of let's get out of here?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, Israel is now preparing to take in twice the number of immigrants from Ukraine that it has in recent years. Ukrainian Jewish leaders who have immigrated to Israel and those there were quoted expressing concern, could this be 1930s again? One of the heads of the immigrants from the former Soviet Union in Israel said it reminds him of World War II.
I'd like to put another piece out for the Israeli press of support. If there's any way that I can get a voice out of support for them, I'd like to make sure we do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We also were going to have Elizabeth Kraft on to talk about our power grid and the vulnerability there and the closing of the coal plants.
All right, so do you have the power grid story a couple weeks ago we did on the For the Record. I was going to say Back to the Future.
There's new information on it.
What's the new information?
Elizabeth Kraft can tell us.
So Elizabeth, there's one story that I don't think I've seen anybody report on. During the winter, we were close to losing the grid entirely in the east. And we were, from what I understand, I love your understanding on this, we were one plant away from having the grid go down because there's just not enough power plants, right?
Right. There was an incredible amount of stress put on the entire grid this winter. It was a long, cold winter, Glenn, as you know. In fact, some states were still seeing snow on their yards and in their cars this week. It's the middle of April. So 75% of the coal plants that are supposed to be shut down next year were called upon to provide power for this last long winter. And it's just, the EPA regulations are getting a little ridiculous.
Okay, so I was told by some friends in the power industry that came to me and they had like no blood in their head. And they said, Glenn, you have got to get this word out because we were one plant would have gone offline. We would have blacked out in the East. And the president is closing these plants in the next 12 months.
Right. The Tennessee Valley Authority is a great example of that, Glenn. So they're supposed to see 20 of their coal-fired plants shut down, and those were the actual plants that met the electricity demand. They had an electricity demand high this winter, and those plants are supposed to be scheduled to be shut down. So what we're seeing here is essentially almost a panic situation in the energy industry.
We have a problem too that we are not laying any natural gas pipe anywhere, and so because especially in the East, everybody is saying not in my backyard, I don't want the gas lines, everything else. So we're not building any clean energy because apparently there's no energy clean enough. What is the administration saying about any of this?
So I have to say that the people who are talking about building up our reliance on natural gas, they do have a point. So for instance, natural gas is one of the most efficient, clean-burning fossil fuels. But the problem is some of these EPA regulations are counterintuitive. For instance, they say, well, we want to burn less fossil fuel, so instead of the natural gas pumps actually running, the natural gas running the gas pumps, they say those have to be electric. Well, that still requires natural gas, or it requires fossil fuels to be burned. So if if the electric grid does go down, Glenn, for instance, that means those pumps wouldn't work at all. So natural gas would be eliminated from a crucial part, which would be black start capability. Glenn, when the grid goes down, we have to be able to maintain that capability.
Where do these imbeciles at the EPA think electricity comes from?
That's the boggling question, Glenn. So the EPA, again, these regulations are so circular. I'm going to explain black start capability for our audience in case they don't understand. Electricity requires electricity. You can't make it without having some place to start. And coal-fired plants are exactly the place to do that. They usually maintain a supply of about 90 days. So they can run for about 3 months, even if the entire grid is shut down. And that's a critical component here that no one is really talking about. So when these coal plants are gone, if the capability is wiped out because of these regulations, we're going to be in a really tough situation.
Well, one more question before you leave. Is there anything that people can do? Can they call anybody and say, knock this? Is there anything they can do, or is this just the die is cast?
So they can call, but the bottom line is some congressmen are trying to fix this problem, but they're saying that there's no way it'll be taken up in the Senate because of the way Harry Reid views the issue.
We're going to be in for a very long, cold winter next year. Thanks a lot.
So General Mills does this thing now. If you like their brand online, if you like any of their cereals or you download a coupon, they subtly change their language so you can no longer sue them. You completely give up your legal right to sue the brand for anything by liking their product. Say you go out and you like a box of Cheerios, whatever, or you download a coupon, and then, I don't know, you get food contamination or there's like a giant spider in the box that jumps out and bites you. You can't do anything. That's crazy.
Is that legally? Can you do that, Joe?
I think if it's challenged, that'd be a tough sell.
Like you have no right to change your mind?
If you're poor, that'll stop a lot of poor.
Oh yeah, it'll dissuade a lot of people. It's like when you go into a parking garage and it says we're not responsible for anything that happens to your car while it's parked here. It's dicey. I mean, some courts will look at that and say, look, you were warned. Other courts will say, no, the parking facility still has an obligation to protect the car and its contents.
Isn't there a reasonable expectation for certain to deliver something? I mean, to not have a spider jump out of your box is reasonable expectation.
Right.
Yeah, that's a reasonable expectation, but I don't think the parking garage thing, if it's posted, no, we built the parking garage. Here's what's not going to happen. The roof is not going to fall down and crush your car. But we're not policing this parking lot. So good luck to you.
Well, I'm doing a simple refi on a house, a second home. And Wells Fargo now, I've dealt with 3 different groups of people. I said, you people even talk to each other? I've just sent those same exact documents, and I can't keep track of the names anymore. I can't keep track of my own kids in my head. So now I'm trying to keep track of, and then I was trying to get a home equity line of credit to do some home improvement. So now I got 2 different things going on. Stacks, I mean stacks of paperwork.
This is why Europe was not an exceptional place. And we always were. Because you could just do it. The guilds that we ran away from, those were labor unions. Those were, you know, these guilds where you had to be a member of such and such, whether it was a place in society, a family you had to be avoided, you know, born into, or some sort of a club that you had to be part of, to be able to pass through those gates to go to the next level. Now the guilds are the government. It's the ultimate guild. And they just pile you in paperwork until you just give up. And you're like, it's not worth it, man. I was gonna start my own business, it's just not worth it. I don't understand how 2 things happen. 1, you can't sue the government. We have a right to redress our government, right? We have a right to petition them and redress them.
If they say so.
No, it doesn't say that. We have a right. So I want to know when that happened. When did they take away our right to sue the federal government? 2, it's insane to think that you sign, once you sign in to the Constitution, it's Hotel California. You can never leave under any circumstance. They're destroying my state. They're taking my land. They're in Utah, Nevada, what is it? 95% of everything is all of a sudden federal government? No, excuse me, that's not the deal. Get the hell out of my land. You have no right to take away our mineral rights, our oil rights. That's ours. That belongs to the people of Utah or Nevada or Alaska. That's us. We have a right to do that. Since when did that happen?
Since you liked us on Facebook.
Father in heaven, we kneel before you as humble servants. We ask that you use these bodies that we call vessels in our minds for your purposes in this day. We ask for your peace. We ask for your patience. We ask for your tolerance. We ask for your love and your understanding. These are all virtues that, left to ourselves, are short in supply. We lean on you for those. We ask that you be with our leaders this day, that you guide their steps, you guide their hearts, you guide their minds. Protect us all, Lord, from the enemy. We ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.